Can you eat an apple before it's been grown? Can you read a book before it's even been written?
Stupid question, right?
We've all heard about the law of supply and demand.
And we all know what money is. But very few people have heard of the law that underpins all economic activity. One prominent economist, and I do use the term loosely, even dedicated his entire career to attacking it.
Are you talking about me?
The law I speak of is Say's law, otherwise known as the law of markets, and it goes something like this.
It is worthwhile to remark that a product is no sooner created than it from that instant affords a market for other products to the full extent of its own value. I want wine right now.
English, please.
If you sell something for $100, you are then able to demand goods and services worth up to $100. In other words,
You have to produce before you consume, and supply creates its own demand. I like to call it,
The first law of economics.
because that's really what it is. So who was Jean-Baptiste-Say?
born in Lyon, France in 1767, he grew up on an all-French diet of wine and women.
Hello, mademoiselle.
Ooh la la! Just kidding. Anyway, he started working for an insurance company before taking a job as a journalist at a small French magazine called Zunding à Ganot Pronoun, soon becoming the editor. After his boss suggested he read The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, he sold businesses he owned and became an economist, writing economic articles for the magazine. In his first major work, a treatise on the political economy, Say improved on The Wealth of Nations by detailing the role of the entrepreneur, who had yet to be distinguished from the capital investor. Keen to popularise ideas of economic liberty, he was constantly examining what was required for a free society. He was highly critical of war and the economic impact it had on ordinary workers, especially the use of a central bank to inflate the money supply and create public debt. He lived through the French Revolution, the rise and fall of Napoleon, and he wrote prolifically throughout his life. He even took several jobs teaching economics. Oh yeah, and he wrote the law of markets, or as I like to call it,
The first law of economics.
not bad, for a frog. Here's an overly simplified but easy to understand example of how this law works. Imagine you're stuck on a desert island. In order to survive, you first need food and water. You get lucky. On this island, there's plenty of fish swimming around, there's fruit to pick, and there's even a stream nearby. In order to eat, you first need to catch fish and pick fruit. You can't just lie around and do nothing, can you? You'll die, man. So you fish and you pick fruit and stuff. By working and getting the food that you need, you're now in a position to demand food in return. Because after all, you work for it. The supply of food has created its own demand for food. It's important to understand that need and demand are not the same thing. Demand is an economic principle that describes a consumer's desire and willingness to pay a price for a specific good or service. Back to our desert island example. Imagine one day you catch a heap ton of fish and you find a really big tree that's going to give you fruit for a long time. Now that you have an excess of food, you can spend less time producing it and more time on other things, like building shelter, making clothes, or even just spending time with your friends. Well, son!
What this example clearly shows us is that you can produce without consuming, but you cannot ever consume without first producing. Duh!
The law becomes obvious in a barter economy where the only way that I can get something I want is if I first produce something that someone else needs. Hello there. Let's say I'm an apple farmer and winter is coming, so I need warm clothes. My neighbour is a sheep farmer and he has plenty of warm wool. My neighbour isn't going to give me any of his wool unless I offer some of my apples first.
The problems with the barter economy should be obvious. What if my neighbour doesn't want apples? I'd have to go searching around to find someone who does want apples, but not only wants apples, but also has something
That the farmer who has all the wool wants as well. The solution to this problem was dosh, moolah, buckaroos, otherwise known as money. Money makes it possible for me to sell my goods or service now and exchange them for things that I want later. It serves three main functions: as a medium of exchange, as a unit of account, and as a store of value. It's also led many people to incorrectly believe that money is wealth and that spending more of it is a way of fixing economic problems. But we'll talk about this one another time.
by a continuing process of inflation, government can confiscate secretly and unobserved an important part of the wealth of their citizens.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. That one's right. You can have that one.
Say's law always holds, and it doesn't matter if you have all the money in the world. If nobody else has produced anything, then your money is worthless.
Economies only get stronger by producing more and better things, not by spending more money. If you have $1 trillion and the only thing available is one strawberry, then you have yourself $1 trillion strawberry. This is exactly how inflation works, which is something else we'll be discussing in another video. For now, all we need to know is that supply creates its own demand because you have to produce before you consume. Otherwise known as
The first law of economics.
The private production is the evil.
Maguchi, Tadevki, Tayo.